Hi everyone, it's me, Krista. Welcome back to my channel if you've been here before. If not, welcome for the very first time to my little art corner here on YouTube. Today I am going to be drawing a little cherub. It's actually a reference photo from DeviantArt. I will put the link to the stock account and the name of that person in the description. If I do forget to do that, please remind me. I was using it only as a reference photo. I wasn't trying to copy it exactly. The actual drawing does end up looking quite a bit less like a statue and more like maybe possibly a real person with soft flesh and whatnot. Today I'm using that gray Canson Me Taints paper, once again the pastel paper, but instead of using pastels, I'm using colored pencils today. For right now, just for the outline, I am technically using a pastel pencil. I like doing this for outlines underneath colored pencil because it usually does not show through the opaque, waxy colored pencil as much as something like graphite would. Plus, it's very easily erased. And the pastel pencil I'm using is a General's Pastel Chalk Pencil in white. And today's palette's going to be super limited. I'm going to be just using gray, black, and white. I am going to try to let a good chunk of that paper actually peek through because that is the point of using a colored or a toned paper for most people, is to be able to let at least a little bit shine through and let it do some of the work for you. The other colors that we're going to be bringing in are going to be a Prismacolor pencil in steel. It's just a gray, a darker gray. A Prismacolor pencil in white. And these are before they had the Premiere collection. These two are from a really long time ago. So the quality is probably pretty similar to what their Premiere collection is now. Not positive, because I don't have a lot of them. And later I bring in a black Faber-Castell pencil, one of the Polychromos ones. I also use the eraser that's on the pastel pencil a bunch, and I also use a Tombow Mono Zero eraser later on, and I also use a Faber-Castell Perfection 1058B pencil, eraser pencil, which is just like a little eraser nib. You can sharpen it up and use it, and on the other side they have a little brush to kind of wipe away the leftovers of the eraser. I'm not gonna lie, this one was a little bit more difficult for me than normal because of the hands. Since the reference photo was of a statue, there were some things that weren't going to necessarily look right, and a lot of this is actually my fault because I placed the hands too far apart. They should have been touching more. I end up cheating a little bit later and taking a photo of my hands in a position that I want them to be in to kind of help fix that. You're going to see that I struggle with the hands quite a bit. They are one of the more difficult things to draw, and apparently I'm a little out of practice on them. You will see me later erase the hands and redraw them multiple times until I give up and decide to use that reference photo of my own hands. For some reason, for me at least with hands, sometimes I can kind of draw it from memory or kind of fake it a little bit, and a lot of the time I have to actually look at a reference photo to at least get an idea of how they actually move, because they're pretty complicated little things that we have on us that we don't really think about. There's just a multitude of different angles and movements and positioning that the hand and the palm itself can move in, and then the fingers on top of that, and each finger can move at a slightly different angle, and they're kind of on top of each other and they're kind of not. They're just complicated. I feel like hands are one of the most difficult things to draw. And I can't remember what How to Draw book this was from, but it's one that I read when I was in middle school. And it was basically saying that you can tell an artist's like true level of skill by how well they can draw hands, because there are a lot of things that can be faked to an extent, and hands are kind of one of the ones that are a little more difficult too. and it takes a really long time to master them. Yeah, so apparently like half this video is going to be me talking about hands because at least half to 75% of the time spent on this drawing was messing around with the hands over and over again. And I wanted to do a dry media this time because I've been playing around with watercolor a lot and paint. I just wanted to use something that I don't use quite as often as I used to now. And I thought that this subject matter would work really well with the tone paper and then the colored pencils. I could have also probably done it in charcoal. Charcoal would have probably been a little bit better for this one considering how much I had to move and shift stuff around because it's a lot easier to erase. It's a more malleable medium. Because with colored pencil you can erase it to an extent, but you don't ever fully get it up. Not really. And later I do try to make the face and the hands and arms look a little bit more fleshy, but I do intentionally keep the wings to be more of that carved look. I just thought it was a nice juxtaposition between the two to have something that appears more soft and rounded against something a little bit harder edged. And like I said, with any piece, I always learn something, and this one definitely taught me a lot. Part of the process was a little frustrating, and there were points where I thought maybe I should start over or just give up, but kind of works through it. And sometimes you might get frustrated with a piece, and you might get angry at it, and you might think you're never going to be able to do it. But if you can kind of walk away for a little bit and then come back with a renewed sense of vigor, you can usually figure out at least something to fix it, or at least make it a little bit better. No piece is ever going to be perfect, and I think as artists that we're all a little bit harder on ourselves than maybe other people might be. We just all have to learn how to be kinder to ourselves and try to kind of work through some of the visual difficulties and take the mistakes and learn from them. Because if you don't make mistakes, you're never going to learn. Every mistake is a learning opportunity, especially in art. I am also intentionally leaving the pencil strokes for the shading a little bit looser, a little bit scratchier. And that is mostly because of this paper. Since it is a pastel paper, it is a little bit rougher. It has more tooth to it, which in a lot of ways is really, really good because you can do more layering. It can definitely handle a little bit more of an aggressive touch. But you can't get typically like perfectly smooth transitions. It's always going to look a little bit rough because of the paper. That's kind of the trade-off. You can abuse it more, you can layer more, you can peel back stuff a little bit better, but it's not going to look as smooth as it would on like bristle board or something like that. And this is something I used to love doing for black and white drawings with colored pencil, or even just graphite drawings, is doing it on this gray paper and using the gray that's already there as sort of the mid-tone, and then lightly using the white and a slightly darker gray and then a black to kind of marry it all together and shade really well. I just really like the visual effect that it gives doing it this way. I just think it looks really, really nice. Oh, and I'm sure I completely passed at least one of the sections where I did this, but I believe there's another one coming up. Because I was having such difficulty with the hands, I do flip the paper over a couple times. Sometimes doing that and drawing upside down when you're looking at a reference is helpful because it can kind of trick your brain into basically drawing what you actually see versus what your brain wants to be there. It makes it easier to see them as abstract shapes. That is a trick my dad taught me a very, very long time ago when I was in college doing a portrait of a friend, and I just couldn't get the angle of certain things exactly right. Because for that, I actually wanted it to look like the person. A lot of the time, I don't really care if it's an exact replicated scanner copy of what I'm looking at. But for that one, since it was a portrait of someone I knew, I did actually want it to look like them. And I was getting frustrated with it. And that was like an 18 by 24 piece or something like that. So it was a long one. It took a while. And when I was at the peak of frustration, he came in and went, "Hey, turn it upside down. That and the reference photo. Do it to both. Your brain's gonna automatically try to see it as abstract shapes more than your friend's face." And it helped. It helped a lot. It was a really good tip. But yeah, right now I'm just adjusting the hands for another time. I'm pretty sure I erased them again and use that reference photo that I took of my own hands in order to kind of fix it in a little bit. And like I said, I'm using those erasers to kind of go in and pull up a little bit. It's nice to be able to use these to pull up a little bit to get back to that gray paper. Like I said, since it's colored pencil, it doesn't do it perfectly. But since this is a thicker paper, you can kind of press a little bit harder with the erasers than you would normally be able to, and you can pull up a little bit more that way. I do have an electric eraser somewhere. I have no idea where it went, but that would have probably been better for colored pencil, because I know with how that moves, that it erases colored pencil way better than a normal eraser does. And there were times when I was thinking about cropping it to be like just under the chin, so that way I would not have to struggle with the hands anymore. But I decided no, we're going to work through it. We're just going to do our best and we're going to get them there, because if I never draw hands, I'm never going to improve. But yeah, we are getting kind of towards the end of this video here. So I want to thank you so much for spending this time with me and for listening to me ramble and rant about the process of this drawing. I do have a question for you guys. Is there anything that you have a really difficult time drawing or painting? Like, is perspective difficult for you? Is there a specific body part when you're drawing people that's hard? Like, what is hard for you when you're creating? Please let me know in the comments down below. Once again, thank you so much for your time. If you liked this video, please hit that like button. If you have any questions, feelings, comments, or concerns, please leave them in that comment section down below. If you want to see more videos like this, please feel free to hit that subscribe button. I am currently posting once a week, every Friday. I may or may not increase it to be twice a week. We will see here pretty soon. And I also want to thank my two patrons, I guess would be more appropriate, that I have on my Patreon account. Thank you very much, Mary Logan and Philip Lake. I will leave a link to that Patreon down below in the description if you are interested in looking at that. Once again, thank you so much for your time. I hope you have a great day or night, depending on when you're watching this, and I will talk to y'all soon. Bye!